Hello, hello, and welcome to this edition of the Law Firm Blueprint. I'm one of your hosts, Ruane, and with me, as always, is Seth Price. Seth, how you doing today? Labor Day's over. We're in the final sprint towards the end of the year. How was your weekend? How
It was
how are
great,
things?
and I got a funny anecdote for you. I'm
Uh-oh.
at the tennis club, and this lady runs up to me. She's like, "You're famous." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It turns out one of our raving fans is her sister, a med mal lawyer in New York, who loves the show and does all of her walks every day listening to us.
Wow. Geez, I think we probably need to start doing better content then, because we have people who are expecting good things from us. So let's talk. Let's just jump right into it then. I mean, what's the issue of the day at Price Benowitz? Because I'll tell you about my issue later.
Sure. I think what I'm struggling with right now is we know systems are needed. I'm on the show with Mr. Systems, right?
I'm on
And and
system.
and it's process, right? We call it systems, but it's process. So when you have Dan Martell telling you when there's an issue, it's a process problem. It's now ingrained in my mind. And as much as I hate the phrase, 90% of the time it's true, right?
Yep.
When there's an issue, why did it fail? The process. And what kills you as a business owner, kills me, is, oh, now we get it. So for those who've been in business as long as us, when you hear that, you're like, oh, damn it. Like, I can't hear this anymore. In 20 years, it's the seventh person in this position, or it's the sixth person in this position, and you're relearning. So yes, the more process you have, the better. But this is what I'm struggling with, which is unless you're going to put together all the processes, you're going to have people beneath you putting process together. People talk about ChatGPT, other things. What is going to put these processes together? And the question is, once that's done, there's okay, you have a process. I'm going to make phone calls to, source something. How do you there's a decision. Are you having somebody overseas do it? Maybe someday you'll have an AI person, you have a domestic person doing it. Is that person able to accomplish it? When something doesn't happen, you're like, oh, we're trying to find the location of a new office. And you realize we're having trouble doing that in a place that we want to open an office in. And we realize, okay, who's been making those calls? And it's somebody who's overseas, which may be great. But if you're calling up trying to lease something, there may be a bias against somebody who's clearly not domestic. So much fraud out there, people trying to do all sorts of straight shady stuff. So the question is, I get process, but how to determine the level of savvy or intellect that's needed at different stages to make sure that what you have as a visionary gets implemented.
I think for me at least, it comes down to you want the person who is the most least capable person of doing it. And I think what you're describing for me in your situation is that it may not be most beneficial to have somebody remote be doing that because it takes some local knowledge to some extent that you can do. Like one of the things we do, right, when we onboard somebody new who's remote is I went out, I cut a 10-minute video about the culture of Connecticut. And here's where our capital is. Here's where our communities are.
At least you got it for 10 minutes. I got battled. I wanted to do a 7-part, 45-minute course, and I got shot down years ago. But I love the 10-minute video.
We talk about how it's, Red Sox and Yankees and Giants.
The basics.
So that they have a better understanding. But like, if I were picking an office in, a town, I think I kind of need to know, okay, is this the nice part of town? Is this where people are going to want to go? Like, you kind of want to have some local knowledge.
I'm
that
assuming
overseas is never going to be able to just get.
Okay, I'm assuming they know where to look. My issue is if you're trying to get an office, maybe within another suite, whatever it is, there's a certain amount of interpersonal piece to that, right? So if the person answering the phone or dealing with that person owns the space and works there, and they hear somebody who's sort of clearly not here, doesn't have all the answers, look, I'm going to go on a tangent. So we're moving our banking from one big bank to Capital One.
Okay.
Right? Very exciting.
Why is that?
We over the years, we went Bank of America. It was too large for us. This technology's froze and would bounce our checks. It's too small, didn't have the technology. In DC, Capital One is putting a huge investment. Not only do they have caps tickets, but it's the right platform for a lot of reasons. And most importantly, to this point, the guy who runs our team happens to be a guy I met 10 years ago when I started BluShark, who was in the branch of Bank of America that was in the BluShark first building.
Okay.
And is a genius and nice and cares and a bank that's all you can ask for.
Well, so you're going there not because you're going there really for relationship.
Well, we were going there and that relationship solidified it, saying that's what we're going, right? They had everything we wanted technology wise, large, not too large, free caps tickets on occasion. But the real answer was they had what we wanted, but this guy, that's why we're there. And frankly, if this guy left, we would, I mean, again, it sucks to leave banks. We've been 15 years, but we would very much have to consider it because what I care about is that guy. So this is my yarn. So I get an email. BluShark made the Inc. 5000 for the 6th year in a row. Awesome. Get a nice little mail from somebody saying, hey, I can make you money on your ACHs. We can get you 2% back on your ACHs, cash back. I'm in. So I start talking to him, start introducing him to my team. And here's two things. He also claimed to have a product that was comparable to Ramp. We're starting to look at Ramp as virtual cards for staff members, keep better control of spending, right? I like some of the points on some of the point cards. We'll keep those for the bigger purchases. But for the micro spending, getting the accounting right, more important than the points, as much as it kills me to say. So this guy calls up. It turns out one couple things. At Capital One, unbeknownst to me, the credit card division completely separate from the bank. So it's almost two different businesses. Where, Verizon Wireless, that type of thing, right? They never should the two cross. Okay. So it turns out there was one fact the guy left out. There's a 2.9% fee that gets associated before your 2% back.
So you're really getting hit for a point. 0.9 of a point.
I think the game is one of two things. Either you deduct the 2.9%, and therefore that's really 1.75, and you're getting two back. Maybe there's a 2.2 to 0.3 spread, maybe. Or you have shareholders, and you're like, well, that comes off the bottom line, but the 2% tax-free goes to me personally. I think there's a bit of that. For small to medium business, whatever it is. My uncle doesn't know about it, but it's wildly popular program. But the fact, it wasn't disclosed, so I escalated. First person I spoke to wasn't great, right? I'm going to be the mail carrier. Second person, I finally got to the guy who knows the stuff. He's like, yeah, this is ridiculous. So he brings me back to a new guy because I'm like, I'm not going to deal with the guy who got himself in the door with this. And the new guy was like, oh yeah, Ramp, yeah, we don't really compete. I spoke to one guy, he said ours wasn't as good as theirs. I'm like, okay. Can we get me at least to a guy who knows? Because if they had a product like Ramp with virtual credit cards, I would rather not have a third-party service and have it all under one roof. But because it's not my banking guy, I have to find, and it's this. So in essence, they're doing the opposite. They're trying to put the lowest paid person towards it. And I'm a more high-maintenance buyer than most.
Oh, God, Seth, you are the highest maintenance.
Right. But I mean, because I don't want to pay 2.9. Don't tell me it's
right.
Fat free money, and it's really either at best a tax float of 0.2, 0.3, which sounds great, but it's not like these half pennies add up like Superman 3. Right. Or it's really just a way of screwing over your partners. I can't tell which, and so I have to go back. I'm going back to the head guy, say, just tell me what the real deal is. How can if this is it a tax play? Is it a way just to shelter it? And if you have something, don't assign me to a guy who has no idea about the product that I'm trying to buy.
Yeah, I'm more. I mean, basically, you're more sophisticated than your salesman, and and they put the wrong salesman on you. I mean, that's the
right. And I'm just like, and because anyway, so I digress. But it's almost like the flip side of this, which is they are putting the guy who is. They can only put so much talent out there. They're only going to pay X dollars to the person who has X amount of knowledge. And you know what? He doesn't sell me, but he'll sell everybody else who are like immediately get it and say, oh yeah, uncle, he's not going to notice we're paying 2.9%. They literally want every check to be written and every wire that's sent out to go through their credit card. They'll charge you the 2.9% and give you 2% cash back. And for enough people, this is like their fastest growing product.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because you're able to get that little bit of cream that you don't necessarily have to share
Right.
if you don't want to. So, I mean, I get it. I wouldn't want to run my business that way if I had partners because I think it's just
Of course not, but but look,
it's
we've talked over the years. There have been situations where, again, it's a is it, or am I missing something? So just tell me what is like. It can't be the 0.2% spread because I see this. I'm a big credit card guy for the points, and
yeah,
there
we
are
talked about that last
people
week.
that look at the like school tuition, college tuition. And the general rule of thumb is you'll pay the 3% if it's for a sign up bonus that you wouldn't get the points otherwise to get your $200,000, $300,000 point bonus. But as a pure cash play, we're talking about something where it's strictly like, what's your tax bracket? Where is 2.9%? Is there a sign up bonus? Because it sounds like there's some bonuses in the first year that might make you more. That that it goes from 0.2 to 2 for a year, but then you're locked in.
I mean, the big question is, at the end of the day, how much of your effort is worth it? Because the amount of time that you're putting into this, you could sign up 3 new clients, and
Well,
it comes down.
it goes back.
That's something that I want to talk about.
No,
Like,
understood. But I wanted the ramp product because that is something that we need,
right.
right? And that's sort of like, hey, my bookkeeping team found ramp. They're doing a beta test with them, right? Here, are these guys real? What my guess is, it's sort of like Bill.com. It's nicer, it's more elegant. It's the one group that does it. Does your bank have it? Yes, but it's not going to be as cool with as many features.
Right.
Is the money worth it? And the same thing's going to be true with ramp.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I think as a business owner, as a law firm owner, you have to sort of make decisions as to the what the right moves are and where you should be spending your time. We talked about Dan Martell, buy back your time. Like, I could get in the weeds of building all the systems, but I shouldn't be the one building all the systems. I should have the people that actually use the systems build the systems, stress test them with somebody at a level below, and make sure it's done. But I should not be the one making all the
I'll push
decisions.
back. I'll challenge Jay. So you don't want to be larger, right? I mean, you don't want to be
Well, I say that, but it's like every year I'm hiring another 10 people.
right. So, but the question is that the best? Are you the systems genius where if you did nothing but put systems in place and let people run them, is that meaning you've done other things? You built your own software, right? Some would argue that was a time pit, which again, my truism is people do what they like to do. I like SEO.
Well, I mean, you need to know though, like, I built my own software because nothing existed in the market when I started building it. I mean, we were server based.
Understood. Right. But for the last 7, 8, 9 years, there have been alternatives that you could use that would do as much or more, with some security built in. By the way, remind me, we, despite everything we're doing, we had somebody get in and send an email, got into one of our accounts and sent an email out with somebody. We do the testing, we do the fake cyber attacks.
Right.
We're about to add a new authentication. I just literally battled, but we ended up spending another $20,000 where you can't authenticate a new computer. And basically these cyber attacks, by getting one of your staff members to give their username and password, how it goes beyond me, they're then able to they can then basically use that new computer. Anyway, my point is we were days away from another layer of security that would have protected, but just shows you it is a cat and mouse game. I digress. But going back to you and that, we do what we like. You do like it. Yes, there was nothing 20 years ago. I get it. But there is a certain amount of what do we like to do and how much further do you want to build and what is the best use of it?
But that comes down to value. I mean, what does it cost to have FileVine, annually for your PI team? I mean, what do you?
Our software is tens of thousands. It's crazy.
Right. You're probably spending close to $100,000 in software a year, right?
Across the board with everything, for sure.
I have my system. It does everything I need. I'm no more than $20,000 for as many users.
Right. And so Dave would just say, okay, if you hadn't had that distraction, that's $80,000. What would you have done with that time of the build, of building, managing, repairing, dealing with? Again,
Well, I mean, I have a developer. I just send him Slack messages. He gets stuff done. I mean, I built my own software, but I'm not doing the coding. You know, that's
Right.
it. I mean,
And look,
at one point I was, but I'm not doing that anymore. We
right. So
have,
you got yourself off that bandwagon.
I got, yeah. I mean, in fact, I have a weekly meeting on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. with my FileMaker developer, and have been doing that one for at least 5 years now, where I meet every Tuesday. Where are we going on? And as of this week, I'm not on that team anymore.
I understand, but it's
You
been a lot of years you were.
a lot of years I was, but that's just the nature of it. I want to make sure that this thing was working. It's just the way it goes. But I mean, I think with the systems you need to do it. But then there's questions that came up in the mastermind this week. For me, is how many systems do I really need? Like I'm a solo and I'm just starting out, and I was like, look, I think you need about 50, and that's it. And here's the list of the 50 that I think you need.
Well, I mean that's look. If you can do that, that's such a blessing because to give people a law firm in a box, so to speak.
Right.
Because and the truth is, you don't need the systems as much day one because you're there, you know what to freaking
Right.
do. The question is, as you layer people in, assuming that you are, that's where it becomes difficult because you could either invent the wheel yourself, but at this point, we also, the interwebs have developed. There was not as many resources 20 years ago.
There was nothing.
Right.
I mean,
now,
honestly, that's why I started doing what I started doing, was because nothing existed out there.
And those that were scattered around the country, and that you sort of figured it out. So the good news now for anybody who's starting now, there may be more competition, but at the same time, you can hacks that can cut down on a lot of that spinning of wheels.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let me ask you then. It's we're back. We're into September now. We're cruising. What is your goal for the end of the year for price benefits? Do you guys have like a 4-month sprint that you're like, okay, this is where we're going to be by December 31st?
Well, look, for those of us that have a contingency PI practice, it's all about the last quarter. No, I'm just saying it's crazy, right? So that is the sprint, literally. We're so much so that we're talking about moving our holiday party to be a beginning of year kickoff party with our opening sort of address to the firm. It's weird. It's holiday party, Christmas is nice, yada yada, but it's also stressful, and you're trying to get people away from the office. We now do a firm summit, full on site. People from around the world come in, so there's that. I think that we have some tough decisions to make as we get smarter about profitability per lawyer, per group, having some tough conversations, making sure that we are, legacy players that were profitable at one point that aren't, either need to become so, or we need to sort of figure something out, because those are some of the tough things. We've been really diligent, years behind where I'd like to be, of trying to nail down profitability per unit, and that has been a piece. And then we've I would argue that the number, as we've aged, and this is probably good advice for everybody out there, the number one piece differentiator of revenue versus not revenue from marketing that comes in for calls, text, emails is response time. We know it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's PI, it's minutes. Are you getting somebody on the phone? Are they answering questions? Are they connecting? Are they signed? But with the fee for service, it's tougher because the person who answers the phone likely is not going to be able to sign, particularly anything beyond a speeding ticket. And to me, that has become one of those KPIs that we sort of have not focused enough on. And then when we see problems, the correlation is shocking. And I think that if we're honest with ourselves, people, I don't miss any calls. What is your personal response time? I had a call with somebody the other day. It depends on the call. It could be a couple hours. It could be a day. I'm like, if it's a day,
it's done.
Or it's a 30% close rather than a 70% close. Now, you can't always be there within that, but can you scale response time or layer it? So there's an action packed where there's a full intake done. And even though it's not signed, you're investing, they're not calling around, because if you don't find a way to get that response time up, it's just leaving money on the table, and it kills me because every time I see an issue, and look, you see it, right? Solo says if you're in court, we have an amazing lawyer. This woman is crushing it, but her numbers for intakes were way down. She has 7 trials over the next 4 weeks,
Right.
small trials, but like it's when you have that, she's going to be billing and doing a great amount of work, and it's going to bring in money, but it's not, so what's your plan B? And that's where we've worked with the non-attorney salesperson, or in our case, attorney salespeople, trying to make sure that we can eliminate the ups and downs as best we can.
Yeah, we had an issue yesterday with our intake team leader where it turns out that, I relinquished control of the intakes years ago to Teresa, and she took over and was being the sales attorney. And then we elevated her, and we have a non-attorney salesperson as the lead of the intake department. And now he's the bottleneck because he's like, well, I got to check every piece of paper before it goes out because if the numbers are wrong, then we get hurt. And I'm like, Danny, buddy, you gotta trust the people below you. Like, you have an executive assistant whose job it is to do the paperwork. If he can't do it, then we get rid of him. But you can't be also putting eyes on every single contract that goes out in your role as the supervisor. Like, because now everything is flowing through you, and we're bottlenecked. Like, we removed 2 bottlenecks to get a third.
Well, it's also the system, right? Because at the end of the day, how many fields are being filled out on your retainer?
Like 5.
Right.
It's not. Yeah.
And frankly, other than price, is there anything that you couldn't get renegotiated if it was wrong? Spelling a name, not good.
Right.
Want it right. But if you minimize the number of things and you have somebody with decent attention to detail, it's one of those ones where it goes out and he could check it afterwards and quality control it. First one is really an issue. You send out 100 retainers, how many mistakes? But at the same time, there may be method to his madness. It may be that your person doing that is not high enough. We're struggling. We have an issue at BluShark where we have essentially a coordinator who has the job of overseeing a number of overseas assets. And in this particular position, those overseas assets are okay. They're not flawless. And the question is, what percentage of that project manager's job should be making sure that stuff is right? Because if she took the attitude that you want and pushed stuff out, it would be bad. So are you investing enough in the right people in those seats? And if you're not, then you're going to have that guy review it. Whereas if you have amazing people with attention to detail in those seats, and it's 5 things and they know they can get the price right, then you're okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's really challenging. I knew growing and scaling was something that I wanted to do for a number of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons, given my history, was I wanted to be. I hate saying it because of the negative connotation, but I wanted to be bigger so that it wouldn't be easier to fail.
Right.
Like I wanted to get bigger so that if something were to happen to me or my father, like, we weren't the only source of income. We had, digital assets, we had referral partners, that type of thing. And so I wanted to be big enough to not fail, which helped us survive COVID for sure, because we had institutional contracts we could rely on. But when you do that, you're not the only person who's responsible for anything. And you have to, I think you're the one who said it. You're like, as you scale, you have to be comfortable with some level of mediocrity. And I think that's something that is very difficult for lawyers to release on, because we are trained to, it all comes down to my license. It all comes down to my name. I have to look at every conceivable thing. And so I think that's probably one of the reasons why law firms have not scaled until recently in the same manner.
And they frankly mostly scale in the plaintiff's department, which seems like the microscope, especially in DC, that we're under, like $1 off in an escrow account could be your license. It's crazy. Yeah. Whereas in PI, nobody cares. People use best. They every unsubstantiated claim, all sorts of craziness that nobody could get away with outside. Referral fees. You can have co-counsel. Has anybody ever looked at the number of hours done on one code? No, it's something bizarre about the world that nobody seems to care whatsoever in the plaintiff space, but in the fee for service space, the microscope is so
It's
absurd.
it really it's and it's really it's interesting. I have seen in my market now for years. I mean, we're talking now almost 30 years. When I was actively trying cases, you would think that I could call myself a DUI specialist.
No, I remember those days. There was
I
early shows.
Yeah, I couldn't
I
do it.
have a specialist, a DUI lawyer. Some people
Right,
give you a hard time just saying you're a DUI lawyer.
right.
Nonsense.
And now I see all these young lawyers, and they all say they specialize in this and that and the other thing. If I put that on my website now, the bar would be looking at me.
Yeah.
But all these other lawyers that have, that are solos getting by with a cell phone, they're doing it. And I can't compete with that, because if I play their game, I'll get dinged, because as Arch Manning said, I got a red dot on me by every judge and every grievance counsel. I don't have a target on my back. I got a red dot from a million different directions, and that's the thing. Like, I think I need to, I just don't know. It's difficult enough to scale a business. It's even more difficult to do it with the confines of our ethical obligations and the people enforcing the ethical obligations who don't really understand how business really works.
In fact, next week, let's talk a little bit about that as far as recording of calls and ethics and AI and everything. But we got to wrap right now.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you for being with us. I hope you had a wonderful summer and you're gearing up for the end of the year and really rocking it here with the Law Firm Blueprint. Of course, you can take us every week on the go, wherever you want to go, by subscribing to the Law Firm Blueprint podcast. And if you want to catch us live, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, live on LinkedIn, live in our Facebook group, the Law Firm Blueprint, that is going to do it for us for now. I'm Jay Ruane. He is Seth Price. Bye for now.